Hello and welcome to this edition of Nation Building. On our program, we examine the political, social, and moral issues in the leadership of the Bahamas. On our program today, we have a very special guest. In fact, this is a new year, and we are starting the new year right. As we say, we're going to church, or we're bringing church to us. And so today, we're pleased to have Bishop Kermit Saunders, and he is the pastor of Kingdom Worship Center International in Freeport, Grand Bahama. So when we come back from this break, we're going to dive in.
It's a new day. This is our new day. And in the blue glow of the morning, there's still time to reach back into our dreams, to become dreamers in the daylight, and live our lives and hopes with open eyes. Yes, this is the day to do the things that will fill our lives with joy and with love. Dreamers in the daylight, anything is possible. This is our new day. We are alive.
Who said you can't get great quality products at an affordable price? If you want the best quality food products at the most affordable prices, you must pick up the Jamaica Bahama brand of fine quality products at your favorite food store. Products like Jamaica Bahama Coconut Water, the most healthy and refreshing drink on the market. Jamaica Bahama Fruit Punch, the only fruit punch in the Bahamas made from real fruit. Jamaica Bahama Coconut Milk, green pigeon peas with coconut milk, condensed milk, kidney beans with coconut milk, corned beef, green pigeon peas, mackerel, and corn. Jamaica Bahama's fine line of products is available at all your favorite food stores and convenience stores nationwide. Telephone 351-8282 in Freeport and 341-4091 in Nassau. I don't wanna win. No, I don't wanna win.
Hello.
Did you get it?
Yes, baby. I got it.
Don't come home without it.
These arms of mine, they are yearning for wanting you.
Where is it?
Strongback is distributed by Jamaica Bahamas Import and is available at your favorite food or convenience store nationwide. For more information, call 341-4091 in Nassau and 351-8282 in Freeport.
Welcome back to Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock, and as mentioned earlier, we are here today with Bishop Kermit Saunders from Kingdom Worship Center International in Freeport, Grand Bahama, my hometown.
Yes.
Pastor Kermit, welcome to Nation
Pleasure
Building.
to be here, Winston, with you.
Wonderful. We are here to have a discussion today about our hometown, our mutual hometown, and from a spiritual point of view, and by extension, have a discussion about the country and the spiritual state of affairs of our country, where we are as a nation, some of the challenges that we have faced. Certainly, you would say, and I would agree, our nation would agree, we are a God-fearing, God-loving people.
Correct.
Some would argue not so God-fearing as we used to be, but nonetheless, still a nation of people that reverence God and have a desire to be faithful. I'm not sure if we're doing a great job of that faithful part. So wanted to just, first of all, in introducing you, ask you to share with us and with the nation a little about yourself. It is your first time being here with us, and so would like to qualify your background a little.
Okay.
So please.
Well, let me say that my name is Kermit Saunders. I've been in ministry now for close to 35 years, full time. I have been an evangelist for many years. I've served the length and breadth of the Bahamas, to Turks and Caicos. I've traveled throughout the United States and London, England, Ghana, West Africa, Amsterdam, Holland. The Lord has opened many doors for me in the gift of the evangelist. I've served through the ministry of Zion United Baptist Convention, which is a very well-known body of church body here. Zion in Eastern Shirley is the mother church. I have since started pastoring a local church in Freeport. We started in the year 2000 of March 12, 2000, and we started with 17 persons, and it's grown tremendously now, about 400 plus, and we're now building an edifice. We've done a lot of social outreaches. One of the areas I believe the Lord has called me to is empowerment and entrepreneurship, to empower the body of Christ to go after their dreams and to see it realized. At present, we're about 50 plus businesses in the church, and we're seeing God do amazing things. Love Him dearly. Married this year, we'll be celebrating 30 years.
In marriage?
Yes.
Now, you don't look as old as your resume suggests. How old are you, Pastor Kermit?
We're 52 years old.
52 years old. You're still a young man.
Yes.
For all that time in ministry, you certainly must be commended for giving up, or not giving up, but giving your service, starting out fairly young in ministry. Yeah. And certainly I personally know of the work that you do and the community of Grand Bahama. And so let me publicly thank you for being a part of what most of our country believe is being the solution to our challenges, which is to serve in ministry.
Yes.
Now, you've said you also been married for 30 years.
Yes. Well, officially, February 27th will make 30 years.
30 years. And how many kids do you have?
I have 3, 2 biological. One is just as much mine as he's lived with me for many years. We hold him dear, everything that
Absolutely.
We have there, so he serves.
You've been blessed
They're
with an
adults
additional
now,
one.
They're
Right,
adult
all
kids.
adults. Yeah. And your ministry in Freeport, you talked about the fact that you've been, how long have you been, sir, I know you've been a pastor for 35 years.
Yeah,
but
17 as a pastor. March will make 18 years.
Well, when you said 35 years, forgive me, you were referring
To the evangelism, full-time.
Full-time evangelism, yes. So it's really 17 years
in pastoring.
As a full-time pastor. Was
yes.
that full-time all those
full-time,
years?
Full-time.
Okay, good.
Yes.
So you've been in ministry, serving in full-time for 17 years. Tell me a little about before we move on to the church in particular, let's talk, I'll give you a plug here for an opportunity for you to plug. Tell me a little about your wife. She's stood behind you for all these years, and yes. Ministry has its great challenges.
Oh,
what is
yes.
Your wife like?
She's an amazing person. Very quiet, reserved, but very, very committed to her faith. She's the prayer warrior. She's been, if I can use it, she's been the soundness to me. to keep me grounded, to remind me the call of God. As you are aware, and those who are part of ministry know that it can get, when you're dealing with personalities, it can get rough at times. But she has been that constant reminder of the call of God. She's been, she's anointed for wifery.
Ah, that's an interesting one.
All right, and she's been my rock, and I'm honored and thankful to God for her.
Yeah, when you get home today, she'll kiss you a little nicer for making all these compliments. But I'm sure it's well deserved. Yeah. Pastor, what today is the greatest challenge in your mind, in your experience in church ministry? What is the greatest challenge in developing an effective dynamic church?
I think right now in the times is the amazing rapid change of the culture. I think if we are going to affect this generation, we have to speak their language. The scripture says, I became all things to all men that I may win some. To the Greek, I was Greek, and to the Jew, a Jew. And what Paul, I believe, was trying to make clear, Mr. Pinnock, is the fact that it is not wrong to adjust for the message. See, we don't change the message, but we do change methods. Mm-hmm. And the reality is, I believe for us, one of the challenges is many of us stay stuck into a formality of how things should do, how things should function, and as a result, we feel by changing method, we are changing message, and that is not the case. And so I believe that if we're going to create a dynamic church, we have to be relevant. You have to be relevant. You have to know what concerns this millennial generation, that new generation. I found that those above 60 already set. You know, they've made up their minds how they're going to do. They need to be continued just to flow into coast into what it is God called them to do. But those below 35s and 20 plus, they want something vibrant and innovative, and they want to feel a part and connected to what God is doing in this time. And the challenge for many of us is that grounding them seems, you know, the Bible says, young man, he says, young man, I call you because you're strong. Old man, why? Because you know the way. He's saying, I'm speaking wisdom to energy. And they are full of energy.
But Pastor Kermit, isn't it true, you talked about the over 60 generation, isn't it true that most of the churches today is really led, by vast majority, is led by people over 60?
Correct. But what I'm saying...
So doesn't that run counter to what you're saying
no,
the solution is? No,
because what I'm saying is we don't necessarily need a young man to pastor. We just need a young mind.
Yeah, but isn't
you've
it true?
got to be willing.
But by your own comments, isn't it true that at a certain age in life you simmer, you do not have the zeal? You quoted the scripture about God calling young men because they're strong and the old because of wisdom.
Correct.
Isn't it true that we have a national problem where whether it's the pulpit or it's political leadership, you have a situation where the new, vibrant, dynamic energy of youth is not being exercised in our country because you have those who have passed their zenith.
Correct.
Sitting in positions of authority, and it serves as frustration, just like it does politically. It serves as a frustration in the kingdom as well of God, in the church ministries, for young and upcoming leaders to be able to give their gifts and energy under the guidance and support of those who are
Correct,
older.
and you said the right word, under the guidance. I believe, I don't have a problem with the transferring of positions and responsibilities and ministries. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, even though they are excited, even though they are strong, the transition has to be, we can't just simply say, okay, because I'm old, just move aside. We have to evolve with them. We have to be willing to learn, to come down and say.
But how much time does this learning take, though, Pastor Kermit? Because as I equate the political to the spiritual, it seems as if in the 1960s, our country had young spiritual leaders, young political leaders, and there was a revolution for the better. In
Correct.
the 2000s, we now hearing political and spiritual leaders telling younger leaders who are upcoming, wait your turn, when they were not deprived the opportunity to ascend to their gift of leadership and their function of leadership, positioning. So it seems that the older generation is robbing the younger generation, and I put this in the church context, of rising up to pastor and to lead and to use these dynamic gifts that the nation needs.
Many of the younger, and I'm right there in the middle somewhere, right? But many of the younger men are zealous, and I find this, they're zealous for the opportunity to lead. And I do agree that there are many qualified ones. There are. But I feel that the transference and of the baton has to be with an understanding that you're just not throwing the old to the curb. And most of the time, there is this tendency that the old is useless.
No.
And until we marry it correctly, and that's the point that I'm trying to make, that you can do equal damage by making a novice, putting a novice in place, as well as keeping an aged man who has served his time beyond his time.
And again, forgive me for keep going back
that's
to
fine.
the political, but we're talking about nation building, so we're talking spiritual and political nation building. And the challenge I want to put to you, and I don't want to overemphasize this point, is it's not a marriage when those who are senior, over 60, over 70, remain in the pulpit preaching most Sunday mornings, when they have trained for 10, 20, and even beyond years, other young men and women who have the ability to lead. They are not gradually removing themselves to a place of authority where they oversee and where they're shepherd in that regard. They want to remain relevant every Sunday morning, preaching every Sunday,
this is
and being in the forefront. I'm saying that, in my opinion, I believe the majority of churches suffer from this. So I put it to you.
Because I don't believe that there has been the kind of succession planning in the modern church that should exist.
And whose fault is that?
I believe it's all of us. It is the church's fault.
But it's the leaders specifically, the old generation of leaders.
But remember now, they come from a generation, right?
That gave them a chance to lead.
No, they came from a generation where they were forced to lead. Some of them were forced to lead, right? But they came from a generation where they did not get the kind of tutelage necessary. They had to wing it.
Okay, so they weren't taught to transition.
You're
watching Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock, and we'll be right back with Pastor Kermit Saunders after these messages.
You bring passion, and we bring world-class infrastructure and innovation that's designed to help your business grow. You have determination. We've got your back with a super-fast LTE network, giving you access to whatever you need, when you need it. You offer superior service, we put you in control, with a dedicated care team to look after your business 24/7. Together, we have the advantage. alive. Let's do this.
Hello, I'm Wendell Jones, and every time I sit down and I watch JCN television, I drink the Jamaica Bahama fruit juice. It's so pleasing to the palate.
I've been cooking Bahamian dishes for generations. I now use Jamaica Bahamas product. The rice is very fluffy, very tasty, and good eating. Jamaica Bahama product is simply the best.
As an insurance agent, my life is go, go, go. But whenever I need a refreshing break, it's Jamaica Bahamas Island Mixed Fruit Drink. Good.
Hi, I'm Debbie Bartlett from GEMS 105.9 FM. The effect that Island Junkanoo Juice Medley has on me is exhilarating.
Hello.
Did you get it?
Yes, baby. I got it.
Don't come home without it.
These arms of mine, they are yearning for wanting you.
Where is it?
Strongback is distributed by Jamaica Bahamas Import and is available at your favorite food or convenience store nationwide. For more information, call 341-4091 in Nassau and 351-8282 in Freeport.
Welcome back to Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock, and we are having a interesting discussion to bring in the new year, 2018, with a spiritual leader, a dynamic spiritual leader, and I still call him young. He's just on the verge of just cross over 50, in the person of Bishop Kermit Saunders, who is the pastor of Kingdom Worship Center in Freeport, Grand Bahama. And he is well known in Grand Bahama and very effective, of course, in his ministry. So, Pastor Saunders, as I made the point about the lack of transition.
I was thinking over the break, something you said, and I thought it was profound. You shared of the fact that many are stayed in positions that, and it brings some form of frustration. I think too that, and it speaks to the point that because the fathers, you know, they said we have many instructed but few fathers. We were not fathered, and many weren't fathered. They wing it. Let's be honest. They wing it. You know, you are called into the pastor, but to be mentored to that degree. And if we learn how many of the churches in the Bahamas came into its creation, it was either they break off as a result of issues, or they felt like I had a call in my life and he didn't recognize this call, so I went do me. So to be birthed out of something is rare. Is rare. And as a result of that, I feel that because the fathers did not know how to do it, and then the sons felt, you know, I'm being passed on or I'm being passed by, we have these tearings, and that's not healthy. I don't believe that's healthy. And until we learn to understand that there has to be succession planning, there has to be preparation to exit in politics as well as in the church. But
well, at least in politics, see, the country has a solution for that. They just vote you out. But in church, you know,
you can get voted out too.
Don't get voted out.
Oh no, some have. Unfortunately, I believe today that we need to understand what is God saying? First and foremost, I believe that there are many who are desiring higher office in the church that sees the quote-unquote fame of the position more so than the passion for the call, because they don't understand. And that's why I believe it's so important that they go through the necessary training and processes, so that when the transition occurs, because you can have the information, but if you don't have the strength to carry the burden.
The question, I guess, Past Bishop, would be how long, and I know there is no formula that says after 10 years or 20 years specifically, but in a general sense, how long does it really take to have a generation of leaders trained in order to allow them to rise up to a place where they are carrying the baton on? In a relay, you don't have a runner running around the track several times before he passes the baton. You know, there's a specified period, and you have to plan, you have to train, and there is rigorous training to ensure that each leg is managed properly.
Right.
And so, to use that terminology, a sports terminology, in the church, I believe it's reasonable to expect that nobody within good conscience would want to see great leaders like yourself rise up, and then after 10 or 20 years or even 30 years, you disappear and some other young person just take over and move in a different direction. But there is methods and training and a process to achieve the kind of success that shows. Even I've seen a very good model of this in the US, in Atlanta, with Pastor Jensen Franklin, where his ministry have planted out several churches, not just in the Georgia area, but across the US, one in California certainly, where the young men and women in ministry, mainly men, who have, he since had the call of God to lead, were groomed and trained, and as the church launched new ministry, they were put over those churches. And so you had a model where you had a dynamic ministry developed. You had a extension of that ministry. Then those who were trained were put in those ministry to provide leadership. So he still provides covering and shepherd for those young men. But it's a brilliant example, I believe, of what our country is lacking, in that I haven't seen a model yet.
I believe that is the kind of model that Christ wants.
In fact, he demonstrated that with his disciples.
With his disciples. And so what I believe is important is for us, but first it starts with the heart. That's why I said, many times we want fathers to father who have never been fathered. And so if you've never been, not that you cannot learn something.
That's what I was going to say.
But you can learn, definitely you can learn. But because he hasn't been fathered, and it takes the understanding of sons to say, listen, he's been limited. For example, I knew a case where a gentleman, he had a child, his father's been absent, and basic stuff, but the son had to come to the realization that, Daddy gave me Daddy only could have given me what he had. And what he learned on streets is what he gave me. But he didn't allow that to change who he was. You understand? Because sometimes we take on the bitterness of what was dealt to us. And so we just continue to recycle that.
I guess where we are, I hear the excuse of legitimately of what caused the problem, but I guess just like we do on our program, we're about solutions. We're talking not just to talk and have a conversation. We're here trying to influence the right solutions. I use the Jensen Franklin's model of having leaders developed and spread across the country or wherever to impact communities. There are other ways to achieve the same goal. I'm suggesting that it's missing. I think I hear you saying that you recognize that it's missing.
It is definitely.
So having said that, I guess what what I would want to find out from you as an experienced pastor is, how does the church as a whole, seeing that it's a systemic problem, how does the church correct that? Because clearly, the spiritual aspect of our lives as a people, as much as we as Bahamian love politics and these other things, the reality is we love church too.
Yes.
In fact, the truth is, you could hardly find people out of church when the year is breaking in and so on. And some may sniffle at that and say it's just religious practice. But the reality is there's a consciousness in the nation at large of the God factor. And so what do you see as an experienced pastor as the way forward to fix the fact that these leaders are not transitioning properly because they were not fathered and all these other things? What is the solution?
I think we need to create genuine templates. The reality is that there is varying beliefs and systems on how things, because as you are aware, like that of Catholicism, that of the Episcopal faith, they are designed something somewhat different, and so they have their
orderly structure.
Orderly structure, and the way when people are cut off or when persons transition into another area or retirement, however it is. In the churches where you are autonomous, we find also that.
Is that a part of the problem, by the way?
Yes, I feel that because the autonomous church is almost the Lone Ranger.
And it's the majority of all the churches.
Of all the churches.
Right.
There is no true template other than the fact that we preach Christ and Him crucified and we go, and as long as I strength, and because there hasn't been succession planning. And I go to this word again. What is that? It's more than just preparing the person, but preparing for your exit. It is putting some things and mechanisms in place. Could you imagine how many pastors in this community who will exit the pulpit without a pension, who will exit the pulpit only depending on the government's pension?
Is that true?
I'm not asking you.
I mean, the word on the street is, the church is a place where, in fact, in some quarters, I mean, some of it is public knowledge, it's in courts and stuff, but the church is a place these days where there's almost, in many quarters, a civil war for a takeover or for positioning, and one would assume that there is great wealth or great financial benefits to gain from being
Mr.
involved in ministry.
Mr. Pinard, my son, Kermit Jr., did a paper some years ago. He's doing his master's at Liberty University, graduates in May. And before he transitioned to Liberty, he did a paper for the now UB,
University of Bahamas.
Was then College of the Bahamas. And it was, religion is big business in the Bahamas. Yes or no?
Is it not?
And, well, he did his paper and he did his research, and he gave it to me to read, and it was a very thorough, because he took some time to do it. He did a survey with the varying churches, denominations, and views within the Bahamas that he could have access to. And it was alarming. He awakened something in me to the fact that if the truth be told, more than 85% of the Bahamian, let's speak to the Bahamian churches, the pastors are bivocational. Okay? Now, if the churches are doing as well as it's saying, why would the pastors need a second job? Very few Bahamian pastors are full-time. I know them in Freeport who ain't driving taxi, driving bus, doing insurance.
So is it just a matter of ego then, outside of the genuine, those are genuinely called? Right. Is it just an ego trip?
On whose behalf?
On those who aspire so much to as I say, to fight to get to the top.
Because the minority, those who have learned and done well as a result of the call and as a result of the commitment and the disciplines, have made it look so good and so attractive that others have aspired. Just like Jordan played ball, he get a $25 million a year contract. And so that aspiring basketball player wants to be a Jordan. I want to be like Mike. That's possible.
The only difference in the analogy is in a sport or in other disciplines, there's perfectly nothing wrong with going into a career path or into a field.
Correct.
To excel and desire and work hard to excel for financial or other benefits. But in a spiritual sense, that I don't think that has a place.
Do you think do you think the church should be poor? Do you think the pastor should be poor?
No, I'm not a proponent of the pastor or the church being poor. I'm just putting the position forward that the dynamics of someone having an ambition to rise solely because...
No, money should never be the motivation.
Or motivation.
That is totally wrong.
Right.
But at the same time, we have to understand that there are benefits to... I have a friend, and I want to throw this case out. You tell me what you think about it, okay? I have a friend. He serves as a pastor in Tampa. He had a marriage ministry on the local Daytona Beach area. He was in Tampa and Daytona Beach. In Daytona, he had a local radio 15 minutes broadcast on successful marriage. And 15 minutes, I'm wondering what you could say in 15 minutes. But he had this little nuggets for stuff. A gentleman from Texas who was married for over 46 years was going through a divorce. Him and his wife happened to be coming down to their kids who were in Florida. While driving, he spoke and heard the woman started to weep in the car. In the 15 minutes of hearing, God, I believe, strategically did this. That they were sitting in the car, he came on for the 15 minutes, they were waiting, and here is this guy talking about marriage and the success. In 15 minutes, they broke down, gave his number, and they wrote it down, we need to call this guy. Goes and they speak to him. He worked with them for 6 months and restored a 46 years marriage. This is a pastor. The guy said he is a businessman out of Texas who was about to lose virtual millions as a result of this divorce. He came and he said to them, he said, I want to be a blessing. The guy said, well, no. He says, no, I want to do something for you. He said, you just saved me millions. This is what the man says.
Okay. Well,
you understand my point?
Absolutely.
And he was a blessing. He gave him a Rolex. But the point I'm trying to make is it was never done for that. He was doing what he was assigned to do.
And blessings followed. Mm-hmm. You're watching Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock. We'll be right back after these messages.
Alive knows what you do today will determine the success of your tomorrow. So we've invested in world-class infrastructure and innovation so every business in the Bahamas can grow. Like our online business account that lets you manage all your business mobiles simply and efficiently through one portal. From adding users and numbers to drilling down where you can view details of individual data, calls, and texts to providing an immediate overview of usage month on month, we put you in control. Our people are here to help your business grow. Our relationship managers take the time to understand your business. And with our care team and our Alive stores, we are there to support your business needs. So let's work together, Bahamas. Let's grow together. Let us be part of your team. Let's do this.
Who said you can't get great quality products at an affordable price? If you want the best quality food products at the most affordable prices, you must pick up the Jamaica Bahama brand of fine quality products at your favorite food store. Products like Jamaica Bahama Coconut Water, the most healthy and refreshing drink on the market. Jamaica Bahama Fruit Punch, the only fruit punch in the Bahamas made from real fruit. Jamaica Bahama coconut milk, green pigeon peas with coconut milk, condensed milk, kidney beans with coconut milk, corned beef, green pigeon peas, mackerel, and corn. Jamaica Bahamas' fine line of products is available at all your favorite food stores and convenience stores nationwide. Telephone 351-8282 in Freeport and 341-4091 in Nassau.
I don't wanna wait. No, no. I don't wanna wait.
Hello.
Did you get it?
Yes, baby. I got it.
Don't come home without it.
These arms of mine, they are yearning for wanting you.
Where is it?
Strongback is distributed by Jamaica Bahamas Import and is available at your favorite food or convenience store nationwide. For more information, call 341-4091 in Nassau and 351-8282 in Freeport.
Hello, I'm Wendell Jones, and every time I sit down and I watch JCN television, I drink the Jamaica Bahama fruit juice. It's so pleasing to the palate.
I've been cooking Bahamian dishes for generations. I now use Jamaica Bahamas product. The rice is very fluffy, very tasty, and good eating. Jamaica Bahama product is simply the best.
As an insurance agent, my life is go, go, go. But whenever I need a refreshing break, it's Jamaica Bahamas Island Mixed Fruit Drink. Good.
Hi, I'm Debbie Bartlett from Gems 105.9 FM. The effect that Island Junkanoo Juice medley has on me is exhilarating.
Welcome back to Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock. I'm here today as we begin the new year, 2018, already weeks in, with a spiritual leader, Bishop Kermit Saunders, who is a pastor of Kingdom Worship Center International in Freeport, Grand Bahama. Pastor Kermit, in our talking, I know you had mentioned earlier briefly that you were building, in the process of building a church, building projects are some people say I don't know if it's a double-edged sword, but there are two sides to it. One is it's a sign of growth, and that's always good and wonderful, and it's also a tool, I believe, that the devil often used to create division. How is your building project going?
Well, God has been faithful in a very, very challenging time. He has shown himself strong, awesome. We're grateful to God to see a continued progress of the building. We're believing by mid this year, we should be able to go in it. We're hoping. We're pushing. We're not pressing people, but we will say this, that when you do the will of God, Winston, I believe that God favors. You don't have to try to create your own vices on how you can make this do. I believe the concept of giving, tithing, the concept of trusting God, the concept of sharing the vision and making it plain, people get a hold of it. And when you help people, people help you. And I believe that. And I've been a testament to this, that we help our members. We are committed to, for example, from home ownership to vehicles, to travel for schools, tuitions, medical, the list goes on, that we have assisted did through our benevolent arm, and we've seen wonderful returns.
So yours is not one of the ministries that people would commonly refer to and say about the church in a broad sense that, you know, the church is always getting tithes and offering, but as far as giving back to the community and impacting outside of proclaiming the gospel of Christ, but in a tangible way, most of the churches in our country is really lacking in terms of its footprint. I qualify that by saying this. Several ministries come to mind, none in the Bahamas. One in Texas, Tony Evans' ministry, one in New York, I think it was former Congressman Floyd Flake, that built a whole community. Well, let me back up and say that I have heard that, and I think there is some evidence of this, so there is one that I can at least say I've heard of. I don't know Bishop Neil Ellis personally, but I've been told that over the years his ministry has been on record to have been doing some significant things, including creating, putting people in homes and so that is to be commended. But it is rare, and that's the point, that the church ministry in the main have not been faithful in itself giving back to the community and giving back to people at large and impacting the lives of those, and has been mainly on the receiving end. And so I wanted you to respond to that.
And I would like to, in defense of the church, say this much, because most of the time when we think about, the church getting this bunch of monies, you got to take into consideration, okay, first and foremost, what kind of monies is the membership giving to the church, right? Because in this depressed economy, obviously they can't give thousands of dollars.
But the economy wasn't always depressed.
But even in those times, they never gave. Because remember now, the average church in the Bahamas is what, under 100 persons?
Certainly under 200 for sure.
Right. Okay. So when you look at it under 200, what category do you place this 150 persons? Upper middle class? The elite class? What class do you put them?
Well, some churches attract
in the 2,000 churches probably in the Bahamas. How many of those do you think have a
upper middle class group?
And the grassroots churches, and I don't like to use the term, but for the point of this,
colloquial,
right? Yeah. So the churches now, the grassroots churches, they're not attracting them, certainly not.
No.
And so they're attracting. So they have the average bus boy, gun waker. And so the resources are not, my point is, the resources are not there because they have to take, most of them do not own their building. They're renting.
So the question then, sorry to cut you, but I have to put this in there. The question is, why all these churches? Why is it just a matter of people's ego? Why are these people, why isn't the established churches like yourselves and others helping to educate or to create, I don't know, you can't force, but discourage the splintering away of church creation and church plants in such a way that it's not tied to an organized body? I'm not talking about a church planting a branch somewhere. Right. We're talking about John Doe decides he wants to, he thinks he should be in charge, so he starts something and it splinters all over the place.
This has to do with a mindset, don't you think so?
But it's not even discouraged, would you say?
Yeah.
By leaders like yourself who are significant, established, I don't want to use the term players, but for a lack of a better term, in the religious circles, who are significant and established players in the religious community, the Christian Council. What about the cohesiveness of the body of the Christian Council to ensure that the churches, as they're developing and growing, is umbrellaed in some way and having an impact, and so that people aren't taken advantage of? Because our people are so God-fearing and so in love with the concept of church that they can be easily fooled.
And then first of all, I think the Christian Council, in my opinion, has to be regarded in a greater measure if we're going to because most of the time it is voluntary. So there are churches who may not join the Christian Council, although the body and the influence and the gifts are exceptional, and the leadership may have the accoutrements necessary to affect positive change. If you don't join them, if you don't, and so it's voluntary, then only those who ascribe to them may be benefactors of what they have and what they can give. But I think there needs to be greater sense of programming and to assist the upcoming, so that we don't just have this repetition of
failure. Let's talk specifically, as we wind this segment down, about the Grand Bahama community in particular. In 2017, we had a change of government, political administration, and you know very well Grand Bahama has been struggling for quite a long time, and successive governments have not been able to remedy the challenges of Grand Bahama. One can argue that the spiritual leaders have not been effective in remedying the challenges of Grand Bahama either, in the sense that you end up with a situation where people are moving away from the island.
Yes.
There isn't hope. And much more, the politicians really can't give much hope, but spiritual leaders like yourself is who God uses, I believe, to give a people real hope, not just of eternity,
correct,
but hope of being able to making it through difficult times. And it's in the church's own interest to have people who are uplifted. Issues of crime, for example, and so many other social ills that we're challenged with is, I believe, remedied in large measure, or significant measure at least, when spiritual leaders are being effective. So the question is, what say you about the church's failure in these areas?
I think the church, I believe, is alive and well. I believe the church can do more, because the story of the successes are never told. Okay? Excuse me. We don't see the many things that churches do. We don't see many of the wonderful programs of feedings and other things of upliftment that the church does. Can the church do more? Yes, most definitely. I think what needs to happen, however, is there has to be a greater sense of cohesiveness among the churches, because sometimes, because of varying views scripturally, it has divided us. One of the things I'm very happy about is this watch night. We had some 50 plus churches come together, and it started, I believe, a movement. And by
coming together, I want you to clarify that for our viewers.
We were invited to a meeting to talk about Grand Bahama. About 17 churches attended. Upon coming to the meeting, the minister shared his heart. As
pastor or political?
The minister for Grand Bahama.
Okay, Honorable Crazy.
Yes, excuse me. He spoke to us about how relevant he believed the church is to the success of a nation. He spoke with such passion that he wanted to really meet with us. It was beyond politics. It was his heart saying, listen, because in that meeting, it was in one side of persons with varying views. And he said to them, we need you. You need to be the gatekeepers. We need you to pray. We need
and
you.
It took a politician
to do this.
To get the church leaders together.
Right. Now, listen, and they came together. In the meeting, he was so passionate about wanting the best for Grandmama. And every pastor would acknowledge the fact that he was. And he said about praying together. And he says, listen, he was open and he was honest. He wasn't pontificating. In my view, he was honest. As a result of what he did, we decided to come together and say, why not? Let's start now. And let's put our agendas aside. All of us do watch night. We have 52 weeks a year to preach to our people. Let's put this one down and let's show this community that we can. Let me tell you what changed it. One courageous pastor got up in the meeting and said, listen, how we can go out there and play like we unified when we're not even unified in here? Some of us don't like each other. But if we can go, let's go for real. Because of that statement, pastors who in there weren't talking because of personal issues, mend fences. If it took that, then that was worth it. We are seeing now a bonding among pastors. Pastors who never spoke, who just did their thing, are now calling each other. Relationships are being forged. And that's the beginning. This unification is, I believe, the foundation of something.
What you have shared with our viewers today answered a lot of questions. No wonder why the country has suffered and been in the state it's been in, when you have spiritual leaders who are supposed to be mature men and women leading people to Christ and providing the kind of example to make model citizens. When they can't maintain communication with each other, it's a sad state of affair. I mean, I'm happy that there's resolution and there's growth and development, but again, it speaks to what we talked about earlier. This sickness is the sickness that is hampering the church and its leaders is what is manifested in society.
Correct.
And so it's clear that much more needs to be done along those lines to help to bring the church as a cohesive unit.
But Winston, also the family. Also, because once the family is whole, right? Once the family is whole, because the church is made up of families. And so once the families are whole, then we're going to begin to see this mushrooming as we anticipate. See? Because the truth is, the police officers are made out of families out of the same society. All of the civil servants, they come from where? These same broken community.
But you agree, Pastor, that we cannot continue to just highlight the problems.
No.
In this 2018,
I agree.
We have to be about solutions.
Correct.
And I'm sure that you would agree that examples such as what you said, notwithstanding it took a political leader to help to foster, to initiate that, you have to find ways as a spiritual leader and someone with influence in your community to begin to impress upon these spiritual leaders to come together on the common issues that you agree on in order to foster unity and in order to come up with core principles and principles that would guide ministries so that they can be effective and also that the impact will be felt in the nation at large, because you are aware we continue to have a significant crime problem that is impacting our society, and successive governments have continued to kick the ball down the field. I want you to make your closing comments as we end the program, just to share your thoughts on the way forward for the country as a whole.
I would like to continue to admonish families to utilize their parents first and foremost, to do your endeavor best to become positive models for your children, because the children is a total sum of what they see and what they're influenced by. And so we have to take the burden off of just the church or schools, and we have to make a commitment, because back in those in the 60s, we were the kind of kids we were because of the influence and the involvement of community. And so we have to go back to community again, to love, not to live for now, but to live for future. And so invest in your children now. Take time now. It's a tragedy that most parents can't even tell you who their children teachers are. They don't go to school reviews or nothing. They just absent. And we need to work from the foundation, which I believe is the family. And until we do that, we're not going to see the kind of results.
And as I close, I want to encourage you, sir, to seek to have your grouping meet with the Minister of Education to see if the church can't work. I think he is someone, the current minister,
yes,
who is reaching out to have a positive impact on the young people so that hopefully we don't lose another generation of Bahamians. On behalf of all of us at Nation Building, I want to thank you for joining us this week and ask you to stay tuned for our next edition of Nation Building, where we'll continue to bring you uplifting, positive, educational, and informative programs. Thanks.